everything has parking. Okay. So I needed to get a partner. So I had to figure out how the hell do I get a partner? And I went over to manufacturing and I sat down with these people. And I remember this guy sitting in his office. I said, no, you know, because I wanted to understand the process. I said, now tell me, what do I need to do? He goes, I don't know. He says, I come in the morning and there's stuff in my inbox and I take it and I sign it and I put it in my office. I don't know where it comes from and I don't know where it goes to.
But my job is to sign it.
Charlie Powers always talked about it. Time when they were diving, up in the South Pacific. And they were coming back and they were in this little restaurant on the way back. And they just inundated this girl that was there. You know, they were trying to take the order. And you know, Charlie's daughter says, I'll have a cheeseburger and you know, and fries and a Pepsi. And then the next person was saying, I'll have just a hamburger with no tomatoes. And this little girl is standing there staring at them. And they all 8 of them said something, and then she finally looked back. What would you like? Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
One thing does it well.
Everybody's getting a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And a Pepsi.
Lord, if you want, but then you get one, you get one basket of fries, everybody can have at it. Right?
You know, when we first moved here, Always used to make sandwiches. I don't think they do it. So my daughter and son-in-law came down, I said, I said, they make really good corns. And so they ordered, and my daughter says, could I just put tartar sauce on the side? You know, it comes on the sandwich. It came on the sandwich. What thing? She really wanted it. No, it comes on the sandwich. Nice and little lady, you know. She was, that's all she knew how to do. I'm not putting that on the side.
Yeah, is that blinking or going?
Oh, it is solid. So I guess we're on.
Yeah, and it looks like that's on.
Okay, good. Well, I'll just.
Okay.
All right. So it is Monday, July 1st.
Yay. Friday.
It is Friday, July. I got the number. Friday, July 1st
It's gonna be one of those days. It's gonna.
at 9:09, and we're convening a session of the Aransas County Appraisal Review Board. We have a quorum. Okay. Before we get started with any hearings today, I wanted to chat with you all and ask Mike to come in too, because he may have some input to this topic. Yesterday's handling and dealing with the affidavit was kind of frustrating for a lot of folks because of the quality of the evidence. And I did chat with Judy Hargrove about how we deal with affidavit, reading them into the record and that type of thing. And I said, is there any flexibility in terms of how we deal with, if nothing else, the evidence part of the affidavit?
As it's presented by the property owner agent through the.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I think in the case of where the agent is present, it might have an affidavit or presenting, in the form of affidavit. That's not as much of an issue as or concern as when we had affidavits that didn't have any representation from the property owner or from the agent.
Right.
Okay. And the process is one we always use, I think, where the district representative reads the affidavit and then falls through the evidence. Okay. And yesterday, because the quality of the evidence was just so poor, it's why I reached out to Judy to say what kind of flexibilities do we have in terms of dealing with if nothing else, the evidence part of the affidavit in that situation. And she said, there's no problem with the board, reaching a point where we say, okay, now, we're going to review individually evidence, ask questions as appropriate. And it's not necessary that every, line or aspect of the evidence be read into the record or presented. Which I think will be helpful from a number of standpoints. One is potentially could speed things up to some extent. Some of the cases yesterday had a huge number of comps. The comps were poorly chosen, and as a consideration from the board, from each individual board member, accepting or discounting certain evidence, which we normally go through anyway, whether it was read or not. We can do that probably in many cases a lot more quickly than having to go through the progression. Okay. So I just want to let you know in case there's anything we might need to do.
If you've reached out to your counsel and she's indicated that you this is way from what I heard, this is the way I'm usually going, my name's Mike, so I'm gonna read this into the record and I'm gonna state the things that they're protesting and read that first affidavit portion. And then I'll stop and I'll say something to the effect, or the district representative will say, on the next 3 pages, you'll find the evidence presented by the property owner's agent. You'll see that on page 1 is sales comps, page 2, equity comp, and page 3 is the summary. And then I'll just shut up, or something like that.
And then let us.
And then you're just gonna read off those, because you're presenting the same evidence.
Right.
And I think in essence, what I heard is you asked Judy, does it need to be verbally said, or can we just say that the evidence is on the next X number of pages or something like that? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I think that would expedite things for sure. You have to understand that you have to consider all the evidence. I mean, you have a duty to consider all our evidence. You have a duty to consider all their evidence. But reading the evidence and considering the evidence are 2 different speeds. Like you can look at the thing and you can discern quickly whether that evidence has, in your mind, each individual mind, any validity. It's kind of like in our evidence package, we focus on the sales comp grid and the equity grid. And then we say on the next 25 pages, you have the sales comparison. You're not looking on page 8 of the sales ratio report to look at one. No, because we typically just go to the end and say that we're at 98% on the weighted mean analysis. And you can look at any of that. It's not that you're discounting the sales ratio report. You're just focusing on the things that you think are valid in reference to the subject property. And so if you were counseled in that way, then you should absolutely consider all of the evidence, but you could probably do it in a way that it doesn't have to be verbally articulated.
You were here, this is not Scottsville, it was great, right?
He just read everything.
Everything. He did an excellent job, Mike.
As you pointed out, I don't know where we say it. We did what we're up to the board and say, that's some hard work, that's some,
Holiday Beach.
Holiday Beach.
Yes. That's in the red. Yeah.
The one in Holiday Beach got me.
And again, in fairness to the agents, they are not familiar with the area, so. And as I said, 10 miles from Houston is different than 10 miles here, and depends on how you consider it.
Well, I think it was all the green. And. Most ridiculous. Couldn't take just put that concept on the screen and let us discuss them as opposed to all that we had.
That's what he indicated.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what,
Let's do those.
that's what,
Which-
There was some, and, you know, A through X, of Tom.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, there was a lot, and then there's ones that were,
May have
were
been
there.
3 of them that were.
well, I mean, that's
I mean,
neither here nor there. I mean,
whatever.
you considered all the evidence, and what I think I've heard is that you can consider the evidence without it having to be verbalized, which is fine.
Well, we had it on the screen, but we also had it in
Yeah,
writing.
Right.
yeah.
So anyway, that's the long and short of that. I hope, and again, there's two situations that come to mind with respect to when somebody is present, physically present, as opposed to when there's nobody there, actually a real person representing the affidavit.
Yeah.
But that was like usual. They had so many comps.
Well, there,
Most of the time, you know, we were late anyway. He said 10, 20.
well, in light of what you just said, imagine hearing one of the ones you had yesterday, and you have a representative over there. They have a choice. They can either focus on the things that they think are relevant, or they can read every single one. They're gonna run out of time if they read every single one, and I think that's what you were alluding to the question for your counsel.
Yeah, exactly. In our experience with the case where there was a representative here, he was good, and he tended to focus on just the ones that he wanted to point out, as opposed to.
And he would say, I don't know where they got this, it's not.
Well, in what happened in my case, I kind of was drifting off a little bit, you know, trying to, I'd look at him and I'm going, God, that isn't even
Yeah,
compared to this one, so I just kind of,
so hopefully
Yeah.
that'll help,
I remember when at least one agent in particular, when they, presented information, and then it was my cross time, I would just wait, and then when it was my cross time, I would just point out the very obvious, like, hey, there's 12 comps here. 2 of them are in the subject's neighborhood,
Yeah.
the rest are, they're just,
right.
with respect, they're just terrible comps. And then I'd move on, like, that was it, you know? And you can do that in your mind when you're going through, and it doesn't need to be read into the record. I guess that's the point. Okay. Yeah,
all right,
good.
thanks.
Great. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
And,
I'll let all my staff members know, so that's.
Yeah. Yeah,
You did a great job.
Okay.
thanks for reaching out to the council too, that was.
Well, and plus I know I was kept away because I knew Ron was kept away.
About it all night. You know.
Oh, did you really? I was,
Well, it's.
I didn't think about
He was
it.
almost frustrated because it was almost an insult. You know, it was like,
No.
we're gonna dazzle you with, we can't win because.
All of
it's
this
true, so let's
information.
just bullshit you
Yeah.
Through it and
Maybe up to
pile
our-
on so much
call.
I don't know.
Just before 11, so that we can, there's a 2-hour window in which we have to start proceeding, set a time clock. Melody and the owner's agent were in both deliberations that were going back and forth with the owner to see if they will settle or if the information that did occur. So we can proceed.
Okay. We have, we show four cases on the docket. Are these all four still on the docket?
Well, the one that I have are here. What is?
Cole has the terminal, right?
So yes, I have the personal property that was also protested, the pipeline and the terminal.
Okay, so there's 4 total accounts.
Correct.
Yeah.
So one is the real property and the rest are the other. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I could read my accounts for them.
Yeah, why don't you just run through them real quick, make sure we got them accounted for here.
The 2 that I personally appraised was account number 88205330 and 8821440. The 2, where the one was for the pipeline and one for the tanks. I think first we're gonna hear the land. I think is what Melody appraises.
And what about the 8822659?
So Melody, that
That is the one I appraised.
Okay,
88222659, which is the land account.
and then I have 59311.
Which is.
then not sure.
Sounds like one of our accounts.
It's a land account.
Oh, okay, it's the land account with zero,
Zero value, right?
Yeah.
because you have it accounted for in
88222659.
Okay,
So we are not gonna do that.
well, it's
59311.
it's active with zero value because it's accounted for in one of their industrial.
Okay. And Val, can somebody check with Val about getting
Swearing sheet.
And they're zoomed in well.
Yeah, we're active online. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, we're going to commence a series of hearings. I'll announce each hearing by account in case ID as we get into it. But we will be swearing in at one time for all four accounts. Excellent. This hearing is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. And when we get into the details of each case, we'll just double check what's.
Okay.
This will be an excellent test of the upgrades to the AC.
Of course, it's okay.
All right, we are the appraisal review board that will be hearing your protest today. We do not work for the appraisal district. We are appointed to perform an independent review of your protest. Don't know whether it's appropriate, but if so, at the end of the hearing, there are survey forms available that you may return. Survey is entirely optional, entirely voluntary. However, we always appreciate any feedback that might be offered. You also have the right to appeal our decision, and appeal information is included in the package that will be mailed to you to document our determination. In accordance with Tax Code Section 41.45H, all written material and evidence that has not been provided must be provided at this time. I assume that we have all the evidence that is going to support these cases. The ARB members who are considering the protest have not communicated with anyone about the protest, and we're signing an affidavit to that effect. I, Scott Wagner, do solemnly swear that I have not communicated with another person in violation of tax code section 41.66 F as it relates to case ID 2022-921, 922, 923, and 924.
I have not been solemnly swear that I have not communicated with the person in violation of tax code 41.66 F in relation to case numbers 921, 922, 923, and 924. I, Joanne Ferguson, do solemnly swear that I have not communicated with another person in violation of tax code section 41.66 F related to case number 2022-921, 922, 923, and 924.
Ron can do solemnly swear that I have not communicated with another person in violation of tax code section 41.66 F pertaining to case number 2022-921, 922, 923, and 924.
I, Peggy Bird, do solemnly swear that I have not communicated with another person in violation of tax code section 41.66 F. In reference to case numbers 922, 921, 922, 923, and 924.
All testimony from all witnesses must be given under oath. Jackie, do you have those zoomed in? They're zoomed in. Can you let them in?
Oh, sorry. Shane Rogers, is that it?
Yes. You can split them up here for a minute.
Oh, it's there.
Hello, Shane, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning. I can hear you.
Good. Scott, you want to go ahead and take over?
Okay. Me, Scott.
Yes.
Too many Scotts in this office. So all testimony from all witnesses must be given under oath. I'm assuming since we have most likely signed and
We have affidavit.
affidavits, notarized affidavits that, and your name is Sean?
Shane.
Shane Rogers. Yep,
Okay, sorry for messing your name up.
no worries.
I mean that since we do have signed and notarized affidavits that you're considered to be under oath during this presentation, during this hearing.
Yes, and I'm happy to swear in if you'd like me to do that, whatever's most effective.
It's already.
Yeah, we're fine because we already have a signed and notarized affidavit from
Okay.
you. And let me understand, you folks are appraisers from the district, or the district?
Richard Nabbitt, representative here. We have two of them. We're going to swear in. I'm going to swear in.
Okay, so at this time, we'll have a district representative swearing.
Okay, I do solemnly swear affirm that testimony shall present to the appraisal review board of the Aransas County Appraisal District true and correct. My name is Michael Soto.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony I shall present to the appraisal review board for the Aransas County Appraisal District is true and correct. My name is Melody Arundel.
And it'll be for all four cases.
Oh,
We're
sorry.
just signing in right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For case numbers 921, 922, 923, 924, Michael Soto.
For case numbers 922, 923, 920, 921, 922, 923, and 924.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony I shall present to the appraisal review board for the Aransas County Appraisal District is true and correct. My name is Coleman Chisholm. I work with Richard Nabbitt out of Houston, and we're working on the four listed accounts. Cases 921, 922, 923, 924.
And are you not ready? Okay, that should do it then.
Okay, Shane, I need to ask whether or not you hold a license or certificate from the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board.
No, I don't.
Okay, that's fine. Makes things easier. Normally, we would have some time limits involved here, but I think because of the nature of this hearing, we'll just kind of play it along as we go. However, I think it's appropriate, Shane, to ask you to make a choice of whether you would like to present first or whether the district would present first.
I'll go ahead and present first.
Okay, we have four cases.
Yeah.
representing all four of them?
Well, I don't know procedurally how you want to do this. It seems to me that we should just start with the kind of the main event, which is the main real estate account, which is 8822,659.
5-9, okay, that's fine. We can start in any order that you feel is appropriate.
Okay,
So I will, and you would like to go first?
yes, please.
Okay. You can start anytime you want.
Okay. Well, I'll set a little groundwork here. The subject property is you guys might already be kind of familiar with if you've looked at this in advance. It's a 232-acre property. It's got 2 storage tanks and half a mile of pipeline on the channel. And I'll put up a picture of it, I guess momentarily with screen share, but just for a little background, and some of this has been resolved. My protest involved 4 accounts. One of those 4 accounts was the previous PID for this account. 2 years ago, there was a separate account number for the real estate, and that changed or was reassigned to the current account number. But that old account number, 59311, is still on the books with the appraisal district, but has a 0 value for 2022. And so, and I understand now what has happened historically, but I'm just setting the stage here so you understand why all of these accounts were protested initially. There was confusion also because the account ending in 659 that we're hearing first today was described as a mineral account. And so the owners were concerned that what happened to the real estate, it's gone to 0. Suddenly there's a mineral account with a $17.9 million value. There was just a lot of confusion. We've since had discussions with the appraisers, and we understand now that the mineral account, that coding of mineral is a way that the appraisal district assigns accounts to Pritchard and Abbott for appraisal. And so we understand what happened, that is in fact the real estate that's being described, not minerals. But we would ask, and I'll get to this when we open the hearing on 59311, would ask that account or one of the 2 accounts that we kind of pick one. So we don't have 2 real estate accounts outstanding, we only have 1. And it would certainly be the owner's preference too. That's the problem with assigning the mineral description, although I understand why it's done for purposes of identifying it for Pritchard and Abbott, is that you lose the detail in the land portion of the appraisal, which is really important for understanding the valuation of this account. And what I mean is the subject property, its land portion, which carries most of the value, is comprised of, it's got 2 acres of waterfront, 43 acres of what's called developed industrial, 130 acres of what's called undeveloped industrial, and 57 acres of what's called wetlands. And those each carry different valuations for reasons that I'm sure you could understand, very different use potential for those types of land. And so the mineral account doesn't retain that level of detail in the land description. And so it's very difficult for the owner of the property to see transparently how it's being appraised. They just see a big value. Now they just see 17.9. It was unclear if that was, what allocations to the different components of land, and how they were being appraised. And initially it was unclear whether or not that included the business personal property, the tanks and the pipelines, although we now understand that those are separately appraised. So that's just kind of the background here. And so like I said, we've cleared up a lot of that, but that explains why all 4 were protested. And as part of that protest, we requested that if we can't combine all of these into a single account, then at the very least, let's identify which account is going to hold the real estate going forward. And let's have the description of the real estate be retained in that account. And so I don't know how we do that and still notify Pritchard that this is their account for appraisal, but by calling it mineral, it loses a lot of detail that used to be maintained in the district's records. Okay. So I'll get into the value aspect of the appeal now. Yesterday, the owners, they submitted a second affidavit, which was received. They dropping the market value protest for the real estate account. So whether that's the 59311 or the 8822659, they've decided they don't want to proceed on the market value protest. They want to withdraw the market value protest and proceed only on the equal and uniform protest that's been filed. And so I'm going to address that with evidence, and I'm going to go ahead and put up share screen. Let's see, can the host allow me to share screen, please?
As long as the evidence that you're going to present was disseminated with your affidavit.
It was. When we filed the supplemental affidavit yesterday with that change, we also attached what was called Exhibit A2 with the evidence that's going to be presented, and it was also provided in a separate email to Pritchard and Abbott.
Okay, understood and agreed.
So consequently, I don't know that it's necessary that we share screen, because we have a copy of that evidence.
And we can present it,
And we can present it from our copy. If that's okay with you.
or he can do it. He can do it if it's the same information. He may want to zoom in and circle things.
Okay.
Fine.
Either way.
I would like to, and then I'll wait on, and I don't have to do it now, but on rebuttal, I have maybe a photo or two that I'd like that may be relevant for me to show, and I think I'm entitled to present that on rebuttal if it's necessary.
Okay. Can you do the share screen?
Up there.
I don't have any requests to share screen.
You can get Amy. You need to, Jackie.
Yeah.
Are there well, down at the bottom, super down there, it says share screen. But that's you sharing your screen.
That's
He
me
needs to-
sharing
yeah, he
mine.
needs to
He's not
share.
requesting. I don't have his request.
Are we trying to figure out how to enable?
They're trying to get things sorted out.
Okay.
Just exit out of it. I just sit share screen.
Can normally use right click in.
Mhm.
And it says we can allow it.
That's right there.
All right.
Can you see now, Shane?
There we go. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Setting.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna screen share. I thought we made that set up permanent, but awesome.
Sorry.
Okay. This is regrettably small. I'm aware of that. So, but I'll just talk you through it. So what we're looking at the end of the day is what's the per acre value. Most of the land, well, all of the value in this account is now in the land because the business personal is handled in separate accounts. And so what we've done is look at comparable properties, both in Aransas, but also San Patricio County, that have similar uses. And we've looked at the appraisal district's appraised values on a per acre basis for those land parcels. And we've also, although it's not visible, all of the analysis is not visible on this screen, we've also subdivided it up into the type, in other words, waterfront, developed industrial, undeveloped industrial, wetlands. And so we've taken the appraisal district's values per acre for those different subtypes of land, and we've then applied those valuations to the subject, if that makes sense. And so what you see here is up at the top, you see the subject property is actually down, oh dear, is actually down here in red, Rockport Terminals. And you can see this year it's appraised at $17.9 million, which is approximately $77,200 per acre. So keep that number in mind, $77,200 per acre. And I think you can see, as you just look down the right-hand column, these are the values per acre of the comparables, and it's by far the most valuable in terms of a per acre valuation of all of the comparables. And this includes, incidentally, the property that's right next door, which is the #1 comp on the spreadsheet, Mojave Ltd. Their property is appraised at just over $38,000 an acre. It was appraised at $38,000 last year, incidentally, and they protested and the board reduced it to $8,000. They haven't had the chance to protest again this year. I imagine they'll be back at it. But, you know, that's probably the best comp, just in terms of location and located in the county, because it's adjacent, and it's valued at nearly half of what we're valued at on a per acre basis.
Let me interrupt real quick. Do we have this piece of evidence? I don't see it.
Yes.
It's not the same. If I'm looking at it,
A2.
I mean, I'm looking at exhibit A2 and it only has, it doesn't have the same number of lines. There's other things that are highlighted here.
It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It's close, but it pretty much stops, at least our A2 stops after
PLX,
Yeah.
Ingleside,
PLX and Ingleside.
at the very top.
Oh, yours stops right here. You don't have the bottom part?
Higher up above.
Even further up.
Above the next green location, right above the second green, right there.
Right there.
Oh, no, go down. Above that green.
You have two
Hold
highlighted.
on, but, well, one thing that just happened is something just happened in the screen image is getting messed up. Do you see what's happening? The exhibit A2 is getting cut and something's happening to the quality of this.
Oh, I see what's going on. Okay, so that I said was missing on our evidence is actually repeated on your screen.
Well, when I look at the PDF on my computer, it's fine. But as I look at it through the screen share, what I can see is something's happening digitally and some of this data is getting a little jumbled. I'm going to stop share for just a second and try to reboot it and see if that helps.
Yeah, double. I think.
And it may be, if I'm guessing it might be related to you zooming on, I'm sorry, magnifying, you know,
That's probably right.
on the PDF.
All right.
So I could deal with the duplication. The thing I'm more concerned about is stuff that might get dropped off. Okay, that looks good. And
That's what we have.
as far as I'm concerned, I don't think you need to magnify it.
Okay. I'll leave it alone then.
Yeah. I'm okay, because we
Yeah,
can
we
make
can
it by
see
our
this,
owners.
yeah, we have.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Thank you for calling that out. I hadn't noticed that, and I'm glad we're not showing something that's illegible. So anyway, you can track just to try to make this information, less dense. And there's a lot of information here on the spreadsheet. Essentially, you can see down the blue highlighted columns that these are the appraised values per acre. And I'm assuming that most of these are probably the noticed values. And so these owners haven't had a chance to come in and present their evidence and try to get them lowered. But this is where we stand today. And the subject property is by far the highest, practically double the property next door. And so as you look down in the analysis, Rockport Terminals, the very last calculation, the table that's at the bottom left that has the highlighted 7,630,165. What's happening there is the spreadsheet is taking the values from the waterfront portions on a per acre basis and applying it to the 2 acres that we have here. It's doing the same for the developed industrial and undeveloped industrial and wetlands, and it's pushing those values through based on the number of acres that we have on the subject, and then totaling them up. And so what you end up with is an equal uniform value of 7,630,165. And that's the owner's opinion of value based on the equity for 2022, based on the comparables. And so at this point, I'll go ahead and let the district present, and I'll save any other comments for rebuttal.
Right, I guess, the first thing that I'd say is the 59311, which has 0 value. It's carried that way for the purpose of GIS. We carry it that way. It's not per se mineral in nature. It's industrial in nature. Pritchard Navitt is a mineral and industrial appraising company that we hire and allow them to do all of our minerals and industrial properties. This happens to be an industrial property, and therefore they have expertise that the local district doesn't have to the same degree. Having said that, we carry the 59311 with 0 value for GIS purposes within our system. In years future, maybe either Jason or somebody, we can withhold that from their import, but they can actually work in our account and actually work this account in years future. But for now, this is the best way that we can carry it from a GIS standpoint. So I wanted to try to alleviate any kind of confusion there. Moving forward, I guess the subject property owner has indicated, one of the very first things that they wanted to move away from was their market value position. And I believe, if I'm correct, you indicated that the subject property owner wanted to drop the market value appeal.
Yes, they've dropped their market value protests.
Okay. And the reason that I believe that they did that is because the subject property is currently for sale for.
Last we heard, around $24 million.
Does that sound right to you, Shane?
Well, first of all, it's completely inappropriate for you to discuss it, but it has been for sale on and off for for many years, and it does not have an ask price. And it's unclear whether or not that's for the real estate only, or if that involves other assets.
The cross-examination.
But it's certainly not relevant to the equity of the case.
Jane, it's my cross. Is the subject property currently for sale?
Well, are you presenting argument, or this is not a cross-examination. This is you presenting your argument, I believe.
Yes, it is a cross-examination period for the district. The next step back to your presentation is for them to have an opportunity to cross-examine.
And then we'll do our presentation after that, right? And he will have an opportunity to cross-examine.
Correct.
For you to assert that it's not appropriate is not appropriate. So I'm going to ask the question again. Your affidavit and under oath, is the subject property available on the open market? Is it for sale?
I don't know. I don't have information about the sale. I'm not here to discuss any potential purchases for sale.
To have the subject property owner's agent indicate that he doesn't know. You're saying you don't know if it's for sale?
That's right. I don't know if it's for sale. I'm the attorney for the owner. And you've shown me that you've shown me in the evidence that there at least has been a listing on the internet for the property.
So then answer the question, sir.
I think you have the answer to the question. It has been listed for sale in the past. I don't know if it's currently listed right now.
With your sworn testimony.
I have nothing further to add. This is an equal and uniform protest. I'm not going to sit here and get interrogated over whether or not they have the property listed for sale.
Owner's agent was asked whether the subject property was currently on the market. And his answer was, I don't know. Is that correct?
I've testified on this subject. You can move on or you can continue to ask questions, but this is an equal and uniform protest. And I'm not going to sit here and get raked over the coals over whether or not they have a listing currently or not.
Okay, the reason that the subject, this is my words, the reason the subject property owner's agent does not want to answer the question, because it's currently on the market. The last listing that we have is Melody.
Last listing that I had that had a price on it was around $24 million. This current listing does not have a price on it. It is in the evidence that I have presented for the board.
Okay, and it brings us to our first general point, and the general point is this: what in essence does the
Are you into your presentation?
we're into our presentation. Melody's going to do the majority of it, but I'm going to just lay something out for you. What is the primary duty of the appraisal district? To carry things on the roll for the correct market value and to treat those properties equally. Those are two things that were generally protested by the subject property owner's agent. The subject property owner's agent started with that there's no longer a market value appeal, and therefore this board from that testimony is not obliged to rule on that. But I'm here to tell you that it's always relevant. It's always relevant what the market value for the subject property is. And part of that relevancy has to do with its availability on the open market. What is market value? It's a property which transacts for cash or cash equivalency, in which the buyer and seller are both fully informed, working in their own best interest. That's what it is. This board is used to hearing cases in which they see houses that are transacted. And I'm going to ask, you don't have to answer, but I'm going to ask for you to consider, is a transaction for subject property relevant? And it would be the district's position that it's always relevant. Is it relevant that the subject property is on the open market? It's always relevant. Moving forward, we will move forward with Melody will present the rest of the information in regards to both the market value and the equity portion, but market value is not considered. So we'll just use all of our information as far as evidence is concerned.
The acreage that was presented in 232 acres, that was on account number, it was 59311. The 232 acres, that is the zero account, and that is not the correct acreage. The correct acreage is 255.333 acres. That is under account 8822659, and that is the account that we're discussing. That's the first part. We have a value of $17,913,640 on that. And when we calculate that out on a per acre basis, it comes to $70,157 per acre, not the 77,000. So we'll start with that so that we're starting at the right numbers.
Could you give me that figure again, please?
Yes, ma'am, $70,157 per acre.
And which account are you
This is account 882265 Because the other account is at zero. So we don't need to discuss that, it's a zero. So that value per acre falls well within the other values per acre that is in the plaintiff's evidence and also which is also mine. If you go to, and I didn't even pull this up on mine. So if you go to my evidence on account 882265 there it is. You will find the page that shows the,
You trying to get to this one?
yes. It is 4 pages. Well, first of all, there is a page that looks like this that shows the newspaper article that describes what Rockport Terminals does. They have done some improvements out there at their location and they now have rail along with truck and barge. Now, this is not a deep water port and I don't want to perceive it as that. They do barge. They do not have deep water. But then the next page, this is their listing available for sale or lease. And it describes their terminal, about their project, their location, their current operations, their future expansions, and it tells you all about their terminal. And it also correctly describes the acreage is about, saying that it's about 250 acres. So I'm certain that we have our acreage correct at 255 acres, not the 232 acres. Now out there are two tanks that are separately appraised and a pipeline that is separately appraised because they're personal property. So I'm only talking about the land. So it is just the land appraisal. We have gone up and down the coastal waterway looking for large tracts of lands that have sold. And needless to say, trying to find tracts that have sold in that area are difficult to find. But we do know that in 2016, and those of you that have been here for a while, this was the carbon black plan. So in 2016, it sold and it got cleaned up. All the environmental hazards got cleaned up. In 2019, there was a partnership sale that occurred. And we have asked the partners to disclose to us what that partnership sale entailed and how much it sold for.
19 or 20.
Was it 20? Excuse me, in 2020. It sold again. And this would clear up a lot of the issues if they would just disclose to us how much it sold for. And what was involved in it. We understand that there may have been other things involved, including contracts and other things. And we have said that we would not, we would keep the information confidential if they would just give us the information. And as of yet, they have not told us. And that was part of what was going on this morning, was trying to get that information and trying to see if we can find out. So as of yet, we have not been able to. And by looking at other large sales along there, we feel that this is the best sale and that it's equitable with other properties of that type. And that is the value that we have placed on the property, $17,913,640, which is slightly over $70,000 an acre.
I'm sorry, could you read that again?
The total number?
Yeah.
17,913,640.
17 million.
17913,640.
That's the total.
That's a total value that we have placed on it. And we feel that based on the other comparables, that it's equitable with the others, this. And we, of course, are in litigation with last year also. And so we're hoping to resolve this in some way for last year and this year. Does the board have any questions? This property does have frontage on the highway also. It's got frontage on both sides of the highway, which I forgot to mention, it's not just water.
Okay, so I guess the question I have is the information that I heard you just mention appears to be a market value discussion. Is that a good characterization?
Yes, sir, but the comps that,
And that's what I was interested in.
On the last page.
on the last page,
Yeah,
you will see,
I'm looking here at these, okay, so.
on the last page of my evidence,
The, for market and
And
equity.
equity.
yes.
I mean, I'm looking at your evidence and maybe I'm a little thick right now. Trying to make a determination between market and equity on the last page here.
One says price per acre, that was the sale price per acre. And then the last one says appraised value AB per acre. That's the appraised value per acre.
Is this?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
That's it.
This last column down.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I tend to use appraiser ease. I apologize to the board.
We're learning. What is the appraisal that they?
So
Yeah, what's in your evidence?
70.
I have 70,157 per acre and
7,630,165.
that-
That's what they.
that's
where
what they're
it's
asking
Yeah.
for.
That's what they're at.
630, so
7,631,165
165, 175.
total.
versus your 17 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
I didn't maybe know that there was much.
Well,
We would need,
70,000.
I don't know. if it's-
No, that's not.
Yeah,
No, it's-
that price, that 70,000.
That would be my value
Yeah,
per
no,
acre.
That's your joke.
Yes, ma'am.
we look. Like. Yeah, it's unfortunately not as precise, at least the number that I'm seeing off of the protester's evidence has several different values per acre based on types. So they got waterfront at 42,230. They've got developed industrial at 23,705. Undeveloped industrial at 50,000 and change, and then wetland at 103. So we can't come up with a
Yes, can't have
specific
it.
number. Yeah, there's not one number. You might take an average.
How many acres?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, the acreage is different than.
Yeah, he calculated it 232 acres
Yeah.
versus the 255.
It could be the, it could be the upland acres rather than what's owned. And you can see that, from their listing where the square goes out into the harbor area. That could be the difference in the acreage, but I'm not certain. The 232 was probably derived from the previous account that when we used to carry it. And again, we would have carried upland acres, most likely. But I without research, I wouldn't know the discrepancy.
With their representatives.
There, you can ask the question, the difference, but I don't know that he knows. I don't know that he would know. And with respect, I don't know that, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
So we have 232 versus 205.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
one thing. So we,
But they're
They're
available
saying they have
site
less
for-
acres than-
for sale or lease is 250 acres
in the
in the,
listing, yeah,
listing, yeah.
yeah, I see that, 200, not advertised, but still it's
Right.
more than 200.
Maybe that would be the one to take, not do either one is somewhere.
Like I said, one of the things is there's a map in the listing, and if you look at the square, it goes into the harbor
Mhm.
area. That could be the difference, but again, without research, I wouldn't know the difference.
Are you? Presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
You are.
Yes, ma'am.
Saying they're wrong.
It goes back to, Jane, you have time for your cross-examination.
Okay,
Did you hear me?
I can. Yeah. Put up just briefly, I'm pretty sure, and this is the district's evidence that was provided to me beforehand that I think they were just discussing. I'm told by the owner that the difference between the 232 and the 250 is that there are out parcels that are separately appraised, I guess, under different accounts. And so I guess they would be, I don't know to what extent they're available, if they're available through lease or as part of the purchase. I don't know, but the subject property, I'm told, is the 232 acres, which was shown in the CAD records historically and is shown down here at the bottom of the district's evidence at 232. And that's what I used, was the district's acreage in my spreadsheet. And you'll see the district's value. This is shown up here as 2021 appraised value per acre. I'm assuming that this is supposed to be 2022 and not simply just last year's evidence. So that this value is the 2022 appraised value, although I believe it may have also been the appraised value for last year. And the 77,176 that was I presented in my evidence is based on that 232, which based on the CAD records, and consistent with the district's evidence. But you'll see, look at, these are of course sales, and we're not having a market value protest, but these are the appraised values of those sales, right? So to the extent that that represents equity, look at the South Texas Gateway Terminal. It's appraised at $70,000 per acre, okay? We're at $77,000 per acre. That's makes no sense at all that we would be appraised 10% higher on a per acre basis than the South Texas Gateway Terminal. I'll put up just briefly. Bear with me here. This is what I'm showing you now. This is a picture of the South Texas Gateway Terminal. This is on the rolls at 70,000 per acre.
Okay, we don't have that in evidence.
This is my rebuttal evidence to the district's presentation that this is a comp. It wasn't one of my, I don't think this is a comp. It wasn't part of my equity evidence, but the district is presenting this as a comp in their evidence, and so I'm rebutting. This is on at 70,000 an acre. It's capacity to service super tankers. Okay. Property is here. This is from the district's evidence from the material. It's on at 77,000 an acre. It can service river barges because you have about 10 feet of depth here, right? Versus South Texas Gateway Terminal, which has 60 feet. Really apples and oranges. And so, you know, a picture tells 1,000 words. Does it make any sense that we would be appraised at 70,000 per acre when this property is on at 70,000 per acre? What this feels like, quite frankly, is just a bit of a kind. I think the district knows that they don't have a solid equity, you know, case here, and they're kind of holding us hostage for details on a partnership acquisition, which, as I've discussed with the district's appraisers, did include quite a bit of intangible property, including permits, including contracts, including other intangibles. And I think they clearly have every right to be very concerned and cautious about disclosing the terms of business transactions. Now, those transactions include real estate as well, of course, no question about it. But this is a very competitive business. And when you start, you know, opening up the book and disclosing, despite what assurances might be provided, the information gets out, and it gets out to your competitors, and information about your contracts gets out to your competitors, and information's about, you know, the permits that you have and when they might expire and all these types of things. And so they, as you can imagine, they hold these things, you know, very close to the vest. And it's not that we don't, you know, we're not trying to just be sort of intransigent and hard to deal with here, but understand that, you know, the appraisal district doesn't have transactional data most of the time, and yet they're able to appraise property at quote unquote market value. Okay. And you don't really have a transaction here. That the sale that was represented in the districts as evidence, there is they've indicated that there's pages from a listing with no price, but there's no transaction. And the tax code definition, you know, even though this is a equal and uniform claim and we're not protesting the market value, but let's just talk definitions: willing buyer, willing seller. There's no buyer. Okay. So I go back again to, you know, to the evidence that I've presented previously, which shows a breakdown of the appraisal district's appraised values per acre for comparable properties. And, you know, the equal and uniform is not something that just gets dismissed out of hand. I mean, it's a state constitutional prerogative. It's been obviously encoded into the statute for good reason, because what you don't want at the end of the day is competitive disadvantage, you know, by virtue of appraisal. And so you don't get, as again, you don't have 90+% of the time, the appraisal district doesn't have the benefit of a recent transaction, and yet still they have to appraise the property, and the appraisal has to be not only at market, but it also has to be equal and uniform and compared to other comparable properties, appropriately adjusted. Both of those requirements by statute and by constitution have to be satisfied. And there's no evidence that this property is equally and uniformly appraised. The only evidence that's been provided by the district has to do with sales transactions. The primary one, which is actually 10% lower than the subject I've just showed you. It's a terminal that is vastly superior to the subject. And that's all I have.
Okay, district, you can offer rebuttal.
Okay, I may be able to clear up the acreage issue. So using the 250 or 255, we have 232 in the old account, but there are two other accounts. If you'll go to the district's evidence, It's here. You'll see, on the second, go move up one more, right there, zoom in. Okay, make it to the middle, please. We see these other two accounts, the one to the back, the 14.
Yeah.
14,815 and that 8,820,337. Again, if you add up those two accounts, the first one, the one in the back is 20 acres and the other one is 3.2. That comes to 23.2. And if you add 23 plus the 232.113, you come to approximately 255,311. So again, if you use the 255 as the denominator in any kind of calculation, you are getting closer to our number of 70,000, not 77. I believe if you check the math, that's where that's coming from. So hopefully that'll help everybody understand. And again, those other accounts are zero value. They're carried there for GIS purposes.
14,815.
14,815 has a zero value and 8,820,337 has a zero value.
Yeah, where's the 88?
Here,
That little,
we rolled this little account
Okay, there it is.
and that little account
Yeah.
all up into this.
right,
Okay, makes sense.
Could you give me the parcel numbers for those two accounts that are zero accounts but are being appraised under this account?
certainly, it's 14815. And the next one is 8,820,337.
Okay. All right, there's new information. To me, anyway.
Well, I'm testifying to try to, I didn't present any information. It's actually, the information is there on one of our evidences. I was just trying to clear up the discrepancy of the acreage.
No, I understand, but you understand the confusion, right? That from my standpoint, I was just looking at the district's records, and the fact that there could be a discrepancy was surprising to me. I didn't know that there were two additional parcels that were out parcels that are now being represented as having been included in this valuation for purposes of acreages. Because remember, the account is coded as a mineral, and so I can't see how many acres are in it. So that's why it's
coded as an
a bit
industrial.
confusing.
It's done by mineral property, but yes, sir, I can understand your confusion. And I was just trying to clear it up. That's all.
Okay.
So again, for the purposes of using the denominator, it would render a value that's closer to the 70,000, not the 77 per acre. Is that right, Melanie?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it comes to 70,000 when.
Shane, did you purport a value that you think outside of the 7 that you really think that the subject property is worth?
The owner's opinion of value is the 7 million
Okay.
630 that was in the evidence presented.
Okay, sir.
No, I think they're done at the moment, although we'll get into closing in just a second. And then we'll take a second to back on them.
You're gonna get into closing arguments?
Yeah, give me a second, if that's okay, Emily?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, if we're ready, I'm gonna request.
Yes.
Okay, Shane, we're at the point in our process where I'd like to offer you the opportunity to offer closing comments.
Okay. I mean, I'll just be brief. I mean, you've heard the evidence on both sides. I don't think that really any equity was presented by the district, but to the extent that their evidence included equity, it would be an identification of the appraised value per acre of some recent sales. And, you know, one thing that you'll note is that, you know, the appraised value per acre is significantly less than what they note as the sales price. And that would be, of course, in recognition that anytime one of these going concern sells, it's very complicated and involves far more assets than just the real estate. And so you really don't know anything when you have a sale price for a property like this. It tells you nothing really about what was paid for the different component parts. You have assets, you have liabilities, you have intangibles. You still have to appraise using kind of, you know, the fundamentals, and it has to be equal and uniform. But to the extent that equity was presented, you see that, you know, again, my example, the South Texas Gateway Terminal is appraised at $70,000 an acre. Let's assume that the appraisal district's records are correct now, and the subject property is actually 250 something acres, which would make the per acre valuation more like 70,000 an acre. There's still no evidence. It's just, you know, it's clearly not reasonable to suggest that the subject property is in any ways comparable to the South Texas Gateway Terminal and should have the same value on a per acre basis. And so I'm squarely addressing, you know, what equity was presented, you know, in the evidence by the district in this hearing. And so I leave it to the panel to make a determination that's reasonable. And I think that determination can only be based on the evidence, and the only evidence based provided is appraised value per acres, you know, in a very detailed allocated way as presented in the exhibit A2 that I presented in my case in chief. And so I have no further evidence or testimony to present. Thank you.
Yeah, in closing, I'd like to start and have you finish up. In closing, I do want to present that you do have both an equity and a sales grid in the bottom of our evidence. If you wanted to look at the one that's most proximate to the subject, we currently have a valuation on the Mojave property of nearly $39,000 per acre. And we're saying that in equal and uniform, you have to appropriately adjust. So if you have that there that's adjacent to the property, you have a port to the subject that's there that we believe makes it superior to that, and maybe even more congruent with the subject property's owner and agent indication of their evidence. When you go to their evidence, and they actually looked at one of our evidence. They looked at CAD evidence, and the one that they pointed to the most was the, what was that one? They pointed to, where was the, well, they pointed to something. So it was, they pointed to one that was, I guess it was redfish that they said there was 70,000 per acre.
Part of it was 70,000, and then all broken up.
They said it was, the redfish was, closer to 70,000 an acre. And then they talked about it being better, where it had a deep port. So you have a bracket of, roughly 39,000, which we're saying that it's better than the Mojave next door. And then you have the deep port that they presented, or we both presented, and subject property owners claim is that one's better. And that's at 70,000 an acre, so you're between roughly 39 and 40 between those two, just from an equity standpoint. If you were to be somewhere between those two numbers, it would still support a valuation that's closer to our number than their number. It would be, if you did 60,000 an acre, I believe that number is 15.3 million, and 60,000 an acre. Comes to 15.3. Last year's valuation on the subject property was 13 million. Again, even looking at their evidence, and our evidence combined. But again, we think that, we'll agree with the subject property owner's agent, even saying that, they don't have a transaction at 24 million. Neither does Mojave, who's our best information indicated that theirs is on the market for somewhere close to that number. They don't have a buyer. So, but we're not at that number. We're at 17, which is more congruent with the $70,000 an acre. But even if you move down to $60,000 an acre, you'd still be at that 15.3 million number. Melody, you had anything else?
And I understand fair and equitable, but we still come back to market value, even though this is not a market value transaction, and there has been a transaction, and we'd still like to have that information. And until we get that, we don't know what it is.
That's it. That's all we have.
Okay. I think this is our time. So, yeah, I have a couple of things. Got a lot of them.
Yeah, me too, I've got it, right.
Okay, so using the protesters' value and the adjusted acreage, I'm looking at 32.
32,
Yeah.
232 acres. Is that what you?
Well, I did both at 232 and 255, right? And with his opinion of value, I come out with 32.8, basically 33,000 an acre, which is well, yeah, it's way lower than any of the equity comps that I can see in anybody's situation. And gave early the big comparison that was thrown out in a number of cases of 70,000 an acre, was against that one facility that the main difference that I heard in terms of why it's quote better is just the deep water port nature of the facility, where this can support hardly, but not a 60-foot depth deep water port. I can understand that playing into equity, okay, and so consequently, I personally would back off of 70,000, and the question is, where do you get between 33 from the protester and the 70K from the district, okay? And if you want to use 60 as an option, yep,
That's where I'm at.
I personally am at that too, so
I'd like to say,
go ahead.
a little, my concern about it now. Sorry that we were not able to get the figures that we asked for in terms of.
Yeah.
What she's described will be helpful in knowing what it's actually paid for this property. And again, we know that potentially it was on the market for 25 million, again, there's no buyer, sell, seller, no buyer, so, you know, that bothers me, but nonetheless, it is what it is, so I'm willing to go down to $70 an acre, 70,000 an acre for.
That would be 60 acres.
That's more
To
than,
get you to 50.
Let's say, I'm sorry, let's say, what did I say?
You said 7.
you said 7.
Yeah.
I'd like to just, I did the 70 because the agents kept using that 70,000 per acre. And I did the 232, which is what they said they had. And I got 16,240,000, but then when I did the 250, which they advertise in there for sale, and used the 70, I got the 17,500. But I'm willing to go down. No, I think I'm gonna stay for 16,240, 200.
We're not on the 232 acres, that also included there was some outlying areas that were not added into that 232 acres, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So there are.
So they are
acres,
rules,
there are
yeah.
more acres than 232, according to what we've heard, so I'm at the 255 acres, which is what is the.
255, and you said it's 60, 60,000.
I think that's. Right. Yes. So if you want to make a motion for that, we can see how that goes.
Wait a minute, let me figure this out.
Sorry.
You said 15,300,000.
It's on 924. Yes.
You all okay with that? You wanna make the
Yeah.
motion?
Tell me how much, what is it?
15.3.
15,300,000.
Yes.
Right, I'm okay with that. That's what I got. At the 60 per
Go
acre.
ahead and make a motion with the case ID 2022-124, account 8822659. Hearing information from the property owner's agent and from the district. Is inclusion of the ARB that this value be dropped from $17,913,640 to $15.3 million.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that closes this hearing.
Cole's gonna be handling the other, tanks and, pipeline accounts.
Okay. It's now 10 after 12. I don't personally care if we continue on or if you want to take a break.
I think these will go relatively quickly.
Okay.
So we just gonna change that system.
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break.
You should be able to.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
And is Shane going to be also representing Tim? Okay, so we'll leave him online.
Hey, Mike.
Okay.
So do I do appraisers now?
Change it to ARB assigned equity because it was an equity argument.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah, well, let me get past this thing. Yeah. It's a mineral account. I can't distribute the value.
You're not.
No, not these.
Unless I sign here.
you haven't,
Even when I get in the property, I can't do it in the
I
property.
want chocolate.
Watch, it won't let me. It's locked.
because you're.
Or maybe I don't have.
Maybe you don't have authority. Yeah.
Maybe not, yeah. Maybe not. Are we taking a break for a second? I have to-
Early. Oh.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I sent you the recipe.
I know.
Okay. If you want to change it like to, chocolate chip cookies, which the regular granulated sugar out for brown sugar.
Okay. Oh, you said add cream. No,
Cheese.
cream cheese.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It makes them soft, you don't get that toughness. And the cookies with the cream, I do it to my cakes too.
Sorry, I was putting a business card on my name's Coleman Chisholm. I haven't gotten to meet everybody, so. Just tell us to see the name.
You don't have to. But I do, I add cream cheese to a lot of things, cakes and.
Add 1, 2 ounce cream cheese. Oh, it needs to be room temperature.
Yeah,
So this recipe and then add the cream cheese.
yeah, that's.
Okay.
The only added thing in there. Oh, I think I ordered some, for the sugar cookies, I added a little bit of almond. Extract.
These look ice.
Yeah, but you don't have to.
Okay, good. Just put sugar on top.
Icing takes too much time.
Yeah.
And then I'm eating more.
These would be
icing
great
than-
for Christmas though. You know, with like the sprinklers on here.
Or what you can do is
And
you can
ice.
color your sugar and roll the little balls in the sugar.
Oh, yes, correct.
Just put some paint, some food coloring into the sugar. And then roll your little balls that you make onto it.
Oh, okay. What's the next thing we can on the,
I can remember, but they put powdered sugar on those.
I remember, yeah, I remember them. My daughter got me. I know.
Don't wear black that day.
My daughter got me. I ordered some, and put it in the box under the wedding.
Yeah.
I don't think we have anything else. I think that's it. No.
I had dozens of these.
I think we just had these 4 in the morning. It was just P and A all day. What are we doing this afternoon?
I freeze.
Oh, what's up? You don't need me this afternoon.
I freeze everything. I think.
It sounds like.
I've never seen you do some more in the morning.
Oh, I don't think our Saturday's next tomorrow. I think it's like a couple weeks from now. The 9th,
It's fun.
the next Saturday.
Oh,
Hey, Eamon.
our meeting.
Hey, it's next Saturday.
Okay, I need one. Yes.
Oh,
And I told them I couldn't.
you asking Ron for kids?
Yeah, I know. I don't even know what it's going to be.
But I know, that's
I'm not traveling.
oh, you're not. Okay. So you'll go ahead and run them.
Did you get your grass?
Yeah.
Working.
I know Beth is gonna be here.
So is this like?
I said I really
think
need her to
the grass, you can do that.
Yeah.
And then you go back and start again.
I think I have like 65 accounts that I still need to make evidence for.
I have like 20 or
Oh,
25, I think.
Yeah, so if I can't get through that all next week, it needs to get done.
Yeah.
Thanks. I wanted it to be done.
I think so.
There's no limit away from home. There's no limit away from home. You used to have a niece come over and her mom would say there's no limit away from home.
So eat their candy.
Exactly. Eat their food, eat their candy, don't come home and expect it.
I don't like in the tablets.
They love them.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's the-
The third year we
They
had.
they blank out as they get lower on batteries.
Yeah.
yeah, I still like to. do paper.
Yeah, but sometimes we have. to-
Yeah.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Chisholm, like trail. I'm not related to John.
You're not.
Thorn.
Yep. Actually, his name is John Chisholm too, right? And I can play off John Lane.
Yeah.
Anyway. The second thing, you didn't have the approved on there. You have to hit the approved first.
Ooh.
So it was the,
We had approved in both boxes, I thought.
So we're probably gonna hear,
the approved like that.
I know the account number, not case number, but probably
Oh, so I can't do them both on this side?
532.
I guess not.
Okay.
See, everything that I put in there
88214440.
is gone. All the notes that I put, and that's it.
It's
And
done.
are you gonna handle that last one, that's the $0 one, or?
I know, but you see what I'm saying?
I think
All
y'all
the
kind
notes
of
that I
addressed
put in
that.
here are not there. They're
I
gone.
think that's that zero land, you know, we have up to GIS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Open it
there
back
may
up
be
and
some.
That's still in
I did a
Well,
whole
I guess, I guess I probably would have done last since I was about land.
Yeah,
Again,
So we did
On,
659.
on the last hearing, who first and who seconded?
Kathy first. I think so.
I'll second.
Right, oh, no.
Roy's second.
Ron's
Ron,
always
Ron.
second. Only when it's not here. Quit. Bad.
Are you back? I'm back.
okay, we'll get started here in just a moment. Just catching up with the paperwork.
That's.
I'm actually from
Just say okay.
from
There you
Tyler.
go. Yeah, it's
Tyler,
there.
Texas.
Okay, get out of that one and get.
Tyler Rhodes. Tyler Rhodes.
I assume Lindale would disagree with you. Albert.
Yeah.
What account number are we doing right now?
We're gonna do, account number 88214440. I'm sorry, my mistake, 88200530.
Thanks. Yeah, Earl Campbell's got,
Earl Campbell, Tyler Rhodes.
he just got his highway built in Tyler.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
Okay, we're ready.
That's a pretty area.
We're going back home, go fishing as much as I can. And it's a lot cooler than down here. I've been in Houston for 10 years, so it's kind of thing I get used to it.
Why do we just try to remember that we're cooler than San Antonio?
All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're opening, commencing a hearing on case ID 2022-922, account number 8820530. And we've all sworn in, so Shane, leave it up to you to decide who goes first.
Okay, I'll let the district go first.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Just for the record, wanted to say my name is Coleman Chisholm. I am a licensed appraiser in the state of Texas. 74628 is my license number. And I get to the ARB, I'll at least go through my appraisal, and then I guess I'll address an informal conversation I had with Shane, but it's not too dramatic. So if y'all pull up the Aransas County evidence for 88200530 on your tablets. That is my full appraisal. It technically does have both tanks and the pipeline in question, but we're just gonna ask to rule on a value for the tanks. So we're talking about two tanks that are at this location, total barrel percentage that I do. So let me start this way. If we look on the right side of the appraisal, you'll see a starting historical value of 358,200. And you all see that? Okay. So if we go below that, we have a quantity of 45,000. So that is the combined barrelage of both tanks. One of them is actually, to my knowledge, working with Matthew and Shane in the past. One's about 20,000 barrels. I think the other one's 25. So I'm doing a cost approach on these tanks, and I do have a equal and uniform cost schedule that Pritchard Abbott uses for all tanks in the county of Aransas. So per barrel, I'm doing $19.90. And then I do a life guide on it, or physical depreciation on it for 35 years. And these are vintage older tanks back in either 16 or 19, whenever the Rockport terminal came into the county, they did, bring them back into service, we paying them, but they kept the original structures, so they are floored out at their value, but they are in operation. So the notice of appraised value that was sent out this year was at 358,200. So no change from historical. So that is the number that I'm presenting, and that should match your case number if y'all like to.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. That's okay. That's the number I'm presenting, the ARB. And actually, let's do, I guess, can we pull up their protest form? I guess just to show it. I don't know if y'all want me to read it or if y'all just want to look. I wanted to go to just page 2 where it's the generic form 5032A, where informally Shane and I talked, and we mostly communicated a lot more about the clarification that we discussed, the mineral versus the land, and kind of getting all that cleaned up per se. And so I don't know if informally we haven't discussed the market value data issue with it or not. So I will give it to Shane now to see if there's an actual issue with the appraisal of the tanks themselves versus land.
And let me interject real quick. Shane, are you protesting both market value and equity?
Well, I guess just, that would be just market on this one. I wouldn't know how to do equity on tanks.
Oh. Yeah, and there were some 2 other things that were identified. One was the property description being incorrect, and other was checked. So
right. So there was a desire to, and those had to do with the mineral account, which is really the real estate account, and then also a desire to, if we had our way, we would have them all combined into a single account, because it's our opinion that the tanks and the pipelines that we're talking about here as separate BPP are really fixtures to the land. You're not going to pick them up and move them. They're attached, they're in place. And that's a pretty standard real estate definition in the industry. And I understand that sometimes they still get picked up as BPP. And that's kind of a minor issue. So our protest would have liked to have them all identified under the same account, just so we're just have one account that we can talk about every year and not multiple accounts. But if that's not going to happen, then there's no further confusion about this particular account as it's structured. And our opinion of market value for the tanks is really not that far off. It's 347,454. And all we did was apply an additional 3% of depreciation over the previous year's value to those tanks. I think they're 1960 vintage is my recollection. And appraisal districts have basically floor values where these things stop depreciating. And the justification is that they're still being used, but I think everybody knows that things do in fact continue to get older and depreciate whether or not they're used or not. And so we think it's reasonable to take an additional 3%, because that doesn't go the other way. We'll see when we talk about the pipeline. As soon as like a CPI cost increase hits, then everything that's floor valued starts going up in value again. So we think it's reasonable for it to just continue to depreciate at 3%, and that's the basis of our opinion of 347,454. That's all I have.
okay, Coleman, you've got an opportunity to cross-examine.
No, I'm about to present his number and I'll present mine.
Okay.
Is this at the bottom of the 3% beyond? I understand there's a bottom line where you don't go past on depreciation. Is this past that?
It is below my opinion of it, yes. Because my opinion is 358, 200,000, because the bottom line is 40% of the straight line appreciation. Basically on these tanks, I'm doing a 35-year life at a 40% floor, which is on the appraisal, which I can show you. It's under the percent good. If we want to go back to my appraisal. That's the Aransas County evidence. It's going to be on page 2. And it's the percent good on the right underneath the trend factor. And that's my opinion on the life of tanks and most of PMA's opinion as well.
Which number were you referring to here? On page 2?
Oh,
Three.
the percent good and it's a 0.40.
Oh,
But I can tell you, I can also tell you the market value that I noticed the tanks at it, that's what you're asking. But-
okay.
And so like what's Shane was asking was 3% less of that.
Less of what it's at right now.
358.
Yeah.
And this is standard for the state or for your company?
It's standard for Pritchard Natter, that's our opinion of the tank life. And the cost, and he mentioned equity, the cost schedules is the equal part of it, that we appraise all tanks at the $19.90. But he was saying equity, I guess, in his opinion, on their side. But I was stating it for the P&A or the appraiser's perspective, that's the cost schedules keep us equal in the cost approach.
In the age of the tanks again?
1960 vintage, because to my knowledge, they weren't like totally rebuilt up. They were just repainted, put back in service, cleaned up. So I kept the vintage of 1960. They've been around, but
Yeah.
It wasn't like they. Now, if they totally like redid them or whatever, I would have started back in 19 as a new tank.
Basically, are you guys approved?
Oh, yes, yeah, I was just, y'all can make opinion ruling on the value.
Shane, are you, have additional information or are you approved?
That's all I have.
Okay,
$10,000, $10,000.
So the dish is 408,540. Know what they presented.
No, 358.
That's.
No, but his
We're not
appraisal.
doing the pipeline, the pipeline's the bottom curve.
Oh, yeah, sorry, we're just ruling on the
The
tank.
pipeline down here, we're doing this up here.
Oh, 358. Okay,
Yeah, we're
I
just
got
doing
you.
the tank for the sake of how we.
Okay,
of how we
yeah,
describe it.
I'm
They're at 358, 200 and
10, 347.
347.
Yeah.
$10,700.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
Well,
the
that's
difference.
good.
$5,000.
That's what I think.
Okay.
335. 353,200.
Yeah.
353,200. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine. All right, case ID 2022-922, count 88205330. Listen to, presentation, it's the opinion of the, Family Review Board that we will reduce the current limited value, 358,200 and 353,200.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Shane, you didn't understand?
I heard you.
Okay, just want to make sure you got the value that we came up with.
Yeah,
Okay.
353,200.
Yes.
Understand, thank you.
All right, and then with respect to the other two, Q5 other and the property description, that's based on evidence and discussion from the last case where the district said they weren't going to combine those.
Correct. Yeah, our opinion that they need to be appraised separately.
So Q5 and Q11, there's no other further evidence presented, is that correct? You fine with that, Shane?
Yes, I understand the district's position. We still would like them combined, but I understand the district's position, so I have no further evidence.
Okay, good. That closes this hearing. We will now open a hearing on case ID 2022-923, which is account number 88214440. Okay. So Shane, you get to choose who goes first.
Okay, I'll let the district go first.
Yeah, again, for the record, my name is Coleman Chisholm. I am a licensed tax appraiser in the state of Texas. My number is 74628. We're doing a hearing on a half-a-mile, 6-inch pipeline that does run from the bay to the terminal. And I was gonna present my appraisal. So the notice value that I'm presenting to the ARB is 50,340. And if y'all look at the appraisal, it's gonna go from historic value down on the right side. The historic value last year was 47,400. And then I have the quantity of the pipe, which is 1/2 mile, and then we have a unit value of 204,180. And then we have our percentage good, which is the life of the pipeline, and then the notice back. So what I was gonna present on the pipeline is, so we are also doing a cost approach on the pipeline. It's a cost schedule to keep us equal and uniform with all pipeline appraised in Aransas County. The replacement cost, and so I'll address the increase from last year to this year, because it is a 1995 pipe. It's actually not fully to the end of its life. We appraised pipeline on a 35-year life, 10% more. So it's not all the way at the end. But with our cost schedule, our RCNs did increase this year. Our engineer that makes this cost schedule did increase it with everything that's been going on in the last year or so, with steel prices increase, labor costs, inflation, all of it. So that's why the increase most likely happened from historical to this year. From 47,400 to 50,340. But other than that, we took the age into the life of the appraisal, 1995, the vintage, so that gives us about 27 years out of 35. And then our percent good, since it's not floored out, is at 0.4931. And that's so I wanted to ask the ARB to rule on the value of 50,340. That's my opinion of value for the 2022 tax year. We can ask and address in their protest. I don't think they gave opinion of value, so we can have Shane present that on his presentation.
Okay, Shane, you got time now for cross-examination and then your presentation?
Okay, I don't have cross-examination. Our opinion of value is 45,978. 45978. And that value was reached by depreciating last year's value by an additional 3%. So this is consistent with how I determined the value of the tank in the previous hearing. Last year's value was 47,400. And so I took that value and depreciated an additional 3% to get 45,978. This is kind of that sort of creeping value increase that you get on these types of assets that I was talking about in the last hearing. Because of how inflation is measured, cost of certain materials go up, they go down. And so we were measuring replacement cost of these types of, or some sort of comparable six-inch pipeline. But it's a pretty well-established, appraisal truism, I think, that cost does not equal market value. And so you have a 27-year-old pipeline in place, in service, it's a year older. It doesn't get more valuable. I get that if I had to go out and buy a new pipe, it would be more expensive this year than it was last year, but it doesn't mean that the pipe that I have in operation being used, and receiving wear and tear, it's not sitting in inventory in a warehouse, it's installed on a property, getting rained on and having products shipped back and forth through it. It doesn't get more valuable. And so I'm simply asking for the additional depreciation that 1 year would provide. And that's all I have.
No rebuttal, I guess small rebuttal is just cost approach is my opinion of the best way to appraise this pipeline to where the RCNs did get. That's how I leave it.
Shane, do you have anything else?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, on the previous case, we took the 3% reduction off the current values of the state by the district. We would do the same thing with this, but I would take appraiser sum of 50,000 to 40.
$48. You know,
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, you know, he makes a good point in my opinion. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't appreciate. It's a pipeline.
He's taking that.
I know, I just need to state that, that's, you know, he makes a good point. But I would be willing to take 3% off of like 50,340, which is 48,829, but I would say 800.
That makes sense. to me.
Right, we are.
And it is a 27-year-old.
And it is a 27-year-old pipeline. And I
If
know.
it was
that-
a 27-year-old car, it wouldn't be good for it, sure.
Okay, I'm good.
48,800.
Case ID 2020-1920, 21440. Let's listen to, information, presented from both sides. The opinion of the site review board that we reduce the currently noted value of 50,340 by 2%. Bringing the new noted value to 48,800.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Shane, you understand the value you got to?
Was that 48.8?
Yes.
Okay, I hear it. Thank you.
Okay, hang loose for 1 second. I just need to double check something here. On this last page.
Okay.
Going back to Houston now?
Oh, I don't know. We haven't tried yet.
Hang around.
Yeah.
Got an art festival going on tomorrow.
Oh, cool. Where, sorry.
Right at the.
Well, sorry, Jack, we still on record?
Do what?
Are we still on record? I mean, we're supposed, I don't know if we wanted,
We're not sorry.
I didn't know we wanted small talk.
Oh, wait, it's a- I'll mute it.
Oh,
There you go. Okay.
So. Okay,
Do we just need to address the fact that it was already handled?
well, it wasn't handled, because there is a protest form. And I think, what we need to do. Well, let me close that hearing. I'm gonna open a hearing. Close the previous hearing. I'm opening a hearing on case ID 2022-921. Count number 59311. Shane, do you have anything to present on that one? I think it's, without presupposing your comments, that it's kind of related to the Q5 and Q11, the
Yeah,
entire line of the properties.
I guess let's just go through the motion so that we can say that we did our administrative process here. And
Excellent.
yeah,
Okay, so if you have something to say?
I just have a question to, write up. So sorry, Jack, for the record, so is the count number 8821440, is that closed?
That is closed.
That's closed, yeah, okay. So we need to get the right appraiser for 59311, that's not me, so let's get,
Yeah.
so let's get whoever needs to do that. Okay,
Okay.
let's find out who technically wants to answer that. It might be so give us a moment. I'm right. Here. Okay, let's.
Yeah,
check that.
Mike left.
Okay.
That's all you left.
I don't think any of them.
Yeah.
Who's a land person?
Yeah.
That-
Everybody.
I was like, technically, this account was y'all's, and I think they technically addressed it in the first one, I thought. Okay, let me grab.
Well, and I think since there is a protest on, that was submitted, we have to make a motion. I'm believing that the motion will be to deny the protest and leave the value the way it was.
Yeah,
Roll this
Yeah.
check.
get a ruling on that here.
If there's anybody else's,
What he's talking to Melody.
oh. she may- no.
I think Melody also here.
Well, we didn't actually vote on it.
Oh, you didn't actually vote on it?
Yeah.
No,
So,
thank you.
One of them has an error, I don't know why. So you're gonna have to wait. You can't.
so Melanie, what I think,
You can
you
try, I don't know.
Do is, there is
This one has an
a,
error.
there is a
88253. Try to remove it.
that we will.
It says PR.
to Deny the protest. And leave the value the same.
I don't understand.
Yeah,
I'm putting everything in there.
There,
The value is zero.
you're right. It's just kind of
It's
a
closed.
formality.
Make sure we address it. since
approved.
it's-
We don't want.
Oh, okay, so it's a different one then.
Right.
Oh my,
I love it.
okay, which one is it?
But that's fine.
There's Arch Crest.
The other one that is? This one?
The one that's like
Yeah, go ahead.
40,000.
Make a motion on case ID 2022-9.1 and 59311. That the request be denied and that the value currently stated at zero remains.
I'll go look at my list.
Yeah, approved, I
All in
don't,
favor?
yeah, it also
Aye.
is approved.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that concludes, closes that hearing.
You get that? Jeff?
Oh, okay.
It's okay. I'll
We'll catch
figure it
up.
out.
Okay. Okay, Shane, I think we have addressed everything.
Wait, did you guys just address 59311?
Yes, we did.
What did you do?
We denied the protest and left the value as it was, which is zero.
Okay, and so would by deny the protest, did you, that includes denying the request to have them combined into a single account?
Yes,
Because the value is zero, the account only exists for the purpose of being there for the GIS
Right.
program. And that's the only reason that account even exists. So it's not an account that there will be value assigned to it. That
Right.
account is combined into 88222659.
Right, and then I'm also to understand, I think that the 14815 and 88337 are also combined into 8822659.
Yes.
Came out of today as well.
Yes.
And on the other issue, and this is, I think this is an important issue, we need a land description in the appraisal district record. And so I don't know how that's accomplished if we just convert 8822659 into a proper real estate account, or we switch it back to the 59311. But part of the protest that, I guess this is maybe the last loose end, is that I think it's imperative that we be able to see the acres every year that are in the account and see the breakdown of the different land use types within the account. As it currently exists, I can't tell if the acreage changes from year to year. And, this property's got, it's 25% wetlands. And so when you're giving me a valuation based on, waterfront or some other type of use, I can't tell how that value is being allocated. And so that for clarification and transparency, we need that detail on the account. However you decide to, whatever number you decide to give to it, I think we're entitled to that level of detail. I'm sure we are. entitled to that level of detail for a real estate account.
Yes, and
Oh,
it is
okay.
broken down. I believe, if not, we can break that down so you can see it.
Just
Right
so,
now, we just have it as a total value, but we can
Right.
break that into these different categories for you.
So that would be great. So maybe if the board could just rule on that and then just say, that yes, this account will have sufficient detail such that the different land units will be described and the acreage of the account will be described in the account, in the appraisal district records. Because right now that data, which is required to be there by statute, is not present.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the account that I think you might be referring to is a desire for 59311, and that is not the account that I believe that would retain any breakdown of land components. I believe that would be in 882659.
Yes,
But it's not in that one either. That's my point.
I understand.
we can put that in there. I will get with the district and we will put that breakdown in that account. But that will be something that the district and I will have to do. I don't think that is something that the board will rule on.
Yeah.
It's an administrative issue.
Yeah, it's an administrative issue. It's not something that the board will rule on, Shane. Okay?
Okay, but I have your commitment that we'll get that detail in because it's clearly required.
Yes, we will get that detail to you.
And it's on the record as well.
Very good.
Okay.
It's anything we need to know.
Right.
Or vote on. Okay, so once again, I'm believing that we have addressed all of the items in the protests that have been submitted. You agree, Shane?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. You've been very patient. And I think we are concluded on all of these, hearings.
Okay, thank you, panel. You guys have a good 4th of July.
You too.
Thank you, Shane.
Bye-bye.
Yes, go ahead,
I
Joe.
move that the meeting be closed.
Second.
We adjourn.